When one hears the phrase, "I did not know," the immediate reaction is usually to condemn the person who utters it. Yet, nothing is more human than not knowing, for human actions emerge from impulses that, to a great extent, escape conscious control. Although the being in manifestation denies this condition, and appeals to the argument of free will, it fails to perceive that it is not fully in command of any action. It is enough to observe that every gesture, every decision, and every movement results from an almost infinite set of biological, emotional, social, historical, and circumstantial factors, and that if any one of these factors were absent, the action simply would not occur. It is the dynamic interplay of this set of factors that drives the being in manifestation to act. Each action, in turn, becomes a new factor that will join others, triggering new impulses and new actions, in a continuous chain that is rarely understood in its entirety. Curiously, the being in manifestation readily admits that it does not know why it does many of the things it does, yet resists accepting this same ignorance in others. Thus, it condemns others, as though they were fully conscious of their motivations, while absolving itself through its own lack of understanding. An honest look at oneself is revealing, but also unsettling, for it confronts the individual with powerlessness in the face of the widespread lack of control that permeates existence. Even so, the social, religious, moral, and legal dogmas of human society construct the idea that there is a solid free will, and that every being is responsible for controlling its own actions. Within this logic, the individual must act in accordance with social laws. Acting outside them implies punishment, for organized society is based on the assumption that everyone possesses freedom of choice. Good and evil are defined by dogmas and by laws. Acting within the law is regarded as just and virtuous, while acting outside it is seen as unjust and malicious. Human beings, however, question their own actions and rarely understand them. They live amid contradictions, regrets, and paradoxical justifications that offer them some comfort, such as the famous maxim, "To err is human." Such justifications often conceal the fact that human beings do not fully know their own actions and are not their masters, although they inevitably participate in all of them. Upon discovering themselves to be supporting characters in their own story, manifested beings find themselves at a crossroads, with one path leading toward the recovery of protagonism and the other toward entering into knowledge. Both appear promising, yet only one is truly capable of awakening them. The recovery of protagonism is seductive because it promises control, autonomy, and a personal narrative, shaped according to one's own will. However, this pursuit often proves to be an attempt to reaffirm old illusions, such as the belief that the manifested being fully governs its actions, and that life can be shaped by the force of intention. The path of knowledge, on the other hand, though less comfortable, leads to a deeper awakening. It requires the being to recognize its condition as a participant, rather than the commander of the flow of existence. Along this journey, the individual comes to understand that their story does not seem to be written by an isolated author, but by a web of factors that pass through them, shape them, and transform them. It is only by entering into this knowledge that the being in manifestation awakens, not to control, but to consciousness, not to illusory protagonism, but to the lucidity of perceiving itself as part of a movement greater than itself.